Hey everybody, it's your boy GARDNSOUND. I want to say first off, thank you to everyone who watched the last video in this series. It went a lot better than I expected. I'll be honest, it was kind of like one of those, I don't know if I want to start my YouTube channel again kind of moments for me, and something about the last video, making it felt good. Y'all's reception was great. All the comments and feedback that I've got have been really helpful. Welcome to the Friday tutorial. My name is Gardner. Today we're going to be talking about snares. By the end of this video, I'm going to show you how to make a snare in Ableton Live, and I'm going to show you how to make a snare in Bitwig, and then we'll compare and contrast the two. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of how I make snares in Ableton, I'd like to first take a moment to address some questions and some comments and some helpful pointers that were given out by you all, the community. Because truly, everybody who commented and left me helpful criticism was very helpful. I posted this video around a little bit last week. Comments come from around the internet, some from Reddit, some from YouTube. They're my favorite ones and the ones that I feel will actually help us with this series and kind of keep the information flowing. I also have to take a moment to thank r/Ableton for permanently banning me for posting that video last week. It's really funny how far that subreddit has sunk. My tutorials have really, I feel, helped that community quite a bit when it comes to Ableton, so it's nice to know that they've got my back. By got my back, I mean stab me in the back with a big knife. I just want to say, for the record, before we continue on with this video is in no way supposed to put Ableton down. This video is designed to help people go from Ableton to Bitwig, but if you don't know what I'm talking about in Ableton, this tutorial also has the byproduct of teaching you some information as well. The only DAW that I care about you using is the one that you can make the best music with. If that's Bitwig, great. If that's Ableton, great. If that's Linux Multimedia Studio, great. If it's Mario Music Maker, that's fine. Whatever helps you make the best music that you can make is the one you should use. It just happens to be that in this particular tutorial series, we're talking about Ableton and Bitwig. This is from Lars Nielsen, 4481. Great video. Thanks. This is maybe a silly question, but why the invert phase in DS Kick? I don't really know what invert phase does, but I know that I like the way it sounds. That's why I use it. It's that simple. All right, so XISO, who is somebody I've connected with on Discord from the Bitwig Discord and the Bitwig subreddit, has been extremely helpful and shared a lot of knowledge with me. And here's my favorite things they had to say about the last video. This is about soft clipping. So there's just one thing missing for Bitwig's chain, and that would be soft clipper. There isn't really a dedicated clipper device, but you can use either clipper modules in FX Grid or Bit8 with its clip mode, which would act as a hard clip with no oversampling. So then we got to talking a little bit more in depth about what this means and whether or not we could make a clipper module inside of the grid. So they and I are actually working on a separate video that's going to address soft clipping and Bitwig altogether. So already from the comments section, we've got video ideas being generated. XISO says, there's also shift drag for fine adjustment of the value, which is pretty common knowledge, but also right mouse button plus drag does the same. And it turns out that doing both at the same time, right button plus shift plus drag, stacks precision for fine adjustment. So instead of 10x fine control, you get like 100x finer control. Super cool. Ben Burns would like to say that, actually, integers are whole non-fractional numbers, so 43.3 is wrong. I was wrong. I said integer, and I think what I meant was you can edit value in Ableton and not integer. Might be. So in my last video, I mentioned that in order to edit a value in Bitwig, you have to triple click. And this person, Mark Losper Wins, would like me to know that you can hold control while clicking something in Bitwig to type a number or edit a value as opposed to triple clicking. Thanks, Mark. Forever Noob from Reddit is commenting on the fact that Ableton banned me, saying, LOL, they have no chill. I agree. Also, you can just control click a parameter instead of triple clicking. So thank you. 2 people have confirmed that control click does edit values in Bitwig, and now you all know too. All right, that wraps it up for this week's corrections. Let's get into building a snare in Ableton. All right, so here we are in Ableton, and this is what a typical snare sound sounds like for me. Now, this snare sound matches, to a degree, the kick sound that we built in the last episode. So if you missed that episode, go ahead, pop back and watch that tutorial. And don't forget, just like last time, you can download this rack as well as the rack that I'm about to make in Bitwig in the description below. So let's go through how to build this. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to add DS snare. That's Delta Sigma snare. Sounds like this. I'm going to adjust this to my taste a bit. Now what that means for me is turning the tone down a bit, the decay down about halfway to 12, and tuning this up in pitch. That sounds about right to me. The next thing I'm going to do is add, in this order, glue compressor, saturator, and EQ8. Let's turn EQ8 and saturator off. Now, with glue compressor, all I'm trying to do is add a bit more snappiness to the transient. So I'm going to turn the attack down to nil, the release to auto, and the ratio to 2. Next, I'm going to take the threshold. Turn it all the way back down to nothing. Soft clipping on. I'm going to turn the makeup up to about 12. And I'm going to turn the range down to about 12. So I already know these settings because I've memorized it and rehearsed this video once or twice. You might need to play with these in order to arrive at the snare that you like. But for me, that gives a nice snap. Then I'm going to turn saturator on. I'm going to change analog clip to soft sine. And I'm going to add 2 decibels to the drive knob. Soft clip on. Sounds like this. Pretty damn good. Next, we're going to add EQ8. Now, my default EQ8 curve is set to remove all those unhearable sub-frequency tones that get in the way of the mix and just eat up headroom. And that's all this is doing here. But to the computer, it makes a huge difference. All right, now let's go make this snare in Bitwig. So here we are in Bitwig. My rack looks like this, and it sounds like this. It's a little bit more aggressive than the Ableton snare. That's okay. Let me show you how I built it. The first thing we're going to do is double click down here in our device pane, and we're going to grab e-snare. We're going to play with e-snare for a bit until we arrive at a snare that we like. Don't forget to turn on caps lock for musical typing. All right. E-snare is a bit more comprehensive than DS snare. In particular, the fact that it has two pitch oscillators and a noise oscillator. It's also got some built-in filters, which are kind of handled in which are sort of handled in Ableton's color and what was it? It was color and tone are Ableton's 2 filters or 2 coloring filters that it has there. But we're going to do this with the 2 oscillators, the 2 pitch oscillators, tonal oscillators, and the noise oscillator. I'm actually going to turn oscillator 2 off. And to do this, I'm just going to turn the offset down to nothing and the decay down to nothing. So you get just the first oscillator. And I'm going to tune that up to about the same pitch we were dealing with the last example in Ableton. All right, I've turned the decay down to about the same. And now I'm going to adjust the mix. I've adjusted the noise, I've adjusted the oscillator, and I've adjusted the width just a little bit. I'm going to turn the decay on the noise down a bit too. Good. Now there's 2 filters built into e-snare. One's a low pass and one's a high pass. I'm going to turn the low pass filter up to like 18 kilohertz. To do that, I'm going to shift click and type in 18. Good. I'm going to take this high pass filter and crank it down a bit too. Probably all the way down to its minimum range. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to use an EQ device at the end of this chain in order to remove those low frequencies that might be interfering with our headroom. Pretty good. Since we're going to be using musical typing and we're not going for like a real realistic drum set here, I'm going to turn velocity sensitivity off so that every time we trigger a note, it's the same velocity. All right. That's our e-snare taken care of. If you want to, you can adjust the output. The default output in Bitwig is like -3 for some reason. I like to usually just turn that to 0. That way I'm operating at unity inside the chain. We're going to add a couple things in this order. Amp, dynamics. We're going to turn dynamics off, and we're going to open up a preset in Amp by clicking the little folder in the title bar. And we're going to go to Drum Loop Power. There are a couple of settings that we need to deactivate before we move forward. The first thing we need to do is turn the cabinet mix off. The next thing we need to do is turn stereo off. And now we're going to turn up the post gain knob a bit. Just adds a bit of oomph to it. Amp is a very powerful plugin I'm finding in Bitwig. Alright, so for dynamics, we're going to turn this plugin on. There's not a whole lot to adjust in here. It's pretty well set up to handle snares. What I'm going to do is turn the ratio on both the low and high thresholds down to 2. And I'm going to turn the knees off. I'm going to adjust the high threshold a little bit until it's a bit of a snappier snare. All right, now that we've got dynamics on here and I can hear a bit more about what's happening in those lower volume moments with this particular snare drum, I'm going to adjust some settings back on e-snare. And I think I want less decay out of the oscillator. Yes. I'm also going to adjust the attack and release on dynamics down to nothing. And I'm going to put this all into a group just like it was. Very good. And then I'm going to add EQ. EQ Plus is a great EQ inside of Bitwig. Mine already has low cut 8 on, but I'm going to drag it up a bit to maybe like 120 hertz. Good. And that's how you build a snare in Bitwig. Just like last time, both of these are available in the description for download. I would love to hear from you. And if you want to be in corrections next time, leave me a helpful hint or something that I can include as information to share with everybody else in the community. But as always, my name is GARDNSOUND. Thank you for watching.